This is Next Steps Forward, and I'm your host, Chris Meek. We have two very special, important guests on here today. Two that I've been fortunate to become called friends. Been doing some work with both of them for a while now, from two very different walks of life, literally. First, we have IndyCar driver Graham Rahal. Graham, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
I know how busy your schedule is, certainly this past weekend. And also our good friend, Sergeant Dan Rose. Dan, thanks for joining us from Smoky, Colorado today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So, we swapped some emails last week, and there's no real agenda here. As you both know, we focus on empowerment, well-being. But first, Graham, let's talk about Sunday. Wow. Congratulations on your third place finish. You're tying your top finish from 2011. Can you give us a recap of the race, from your perspective, from a fan's perspective, and maybe a little bit more detail for folks who may not be IndyCar fans in terms of what goes into preparation for that?
Yeah, for us to finish third, I think at the Indy 500 is a huge deal. We've had great runs there in the past, but to do it again, to finish like we did as a team as well, finishing first and third, Takuma Sato, my teammate, winning, the race. It's a huge moment for us. It's a pretty intense race when you think about, the overall 500 miles, 3 hours or so that it takes, but we work and we dedicate ourselves so much throughout the entire year. Already when this race came to a conclusion Sunday night, there was already a lot of thoughts of, how do we improve for the Indy 500 in 2021. So, that never really stops. The wheels are always in motion and trying to improve. But, our guys did an excellent job. The team did an excellent job. To be able to finish first and third at Indy's a pretty incredible accomplishment for an organization like us. And so just keep our heads down. Now, we can't enjoy it too long because we head off to St. Louis this weekend for a doubleheader. So really quick turnaround, but it was a huge accomplishment for us.
Yeah, congratulations to you and certainly Sato and the team. So great work to everyone there. You talked about heading off to St. Louis and the doubleheader. COVID-19 has obviously turned the world upside down, inside out, whatever you want to call it. Major sports have obviously been disrupted as people's lives have. I work in New York City and haven't been back since the first week of March and don't know when I'm going back.
Exactly.
So that being said, what's it like racing with nobody in the stands? How do you prepare for that physically? How do you prepare for it mentally, just to stay at that top level that you run at all the time?
Well, it's different with the fans, without fans keep you motivated too. It keeps you motivated to go on and put on a good show. The atmosphere produces extra adrenaline that makes us, go out there and push a little bit harder sometimes. Indianapolis is quite different. That once you're in the car, the visor's down, you're so locked into what you need to do to win the Indy 500. It's pretty easy to be self-motivating in that instance. To not have fans there, when you look back at the 104 years of racing that we've had, or 104 races that have now been complete at the Indy 500, the fans are clearly a big part of the fabric of that event. When you look back and, it's a single largest sporting event, single day in the world, 300,000 plus people ordinarily. I know you guys have both seen it. But to not have that this year was a little bit strange, walking to the grid and all that stuff. But as I said, it's pretty easy there to be self-motivating because, when we train year in, year out, and you're pushing as hard as you can, you're trying to run that extra mile. The easiest way to convince yourself to do it is to tell yourself you're doing it for the Indy 500 win, and picture that last lap and battling for the victory. And, seemingly you can always get that mile done. So it's a huge one for us.
And Graham, one other question here before we go to Dan. Let's go back to the start for you for a moment. We all know your father, Bobby Rahal, won the Indy 500 in 86.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like growing up in a house like that? Were you always going to be a driver? Did you want to be an astronaut or a lawyer?
Well, it's funny because I was with some of the Air Force Thunderbirds last week because they did the flyover for the race. And so we saw them before that. And I told them, which was the truth. As a kid, the two things I always was crazy passionate about is I either wanted to be an IndyCar driver or a fighter pilot. That's what I always said. So, to me, I got to live one of those dreams. Racing was the obvious fit, but I must also say that in my family, I'm really the only one that has any involvement with racing whatsoever. So it's not like, just because you were, born in and you were a Rahal that you went racing. I mean, the majority of my siblings never really, they had interest because I was involved or dad was, but they didn't have interest in being involved themselves. So it was it wasn't set in stone, but certainly it's been a great dream, for me to live out. And I think too, from a family perspective, IndyCar racing means so much to us. The Indy 500 means so much to us. So it's been, we've been fortunate to have it.
So you're like the old Top Gun movie, you just have the need for speed.
I do, definitely. There's no doubt about that.
I love it. I love it. Sergeant Dan Rose, over to you for a few minutes, if that's okay.
Sure.
Excuse me. So, Graham and I know your story. We know your enlistment in the military. Can you tell us a little bit about, who and what Dan Rose is, and why did you first sign up to join the Army to begin with?
Yeah, to be honest, I joined up just because when I turned 18, my parents asked me, what are you going to do next year? And I was like, I'll go to college, and they're like, how are you going to pay for that? And I was like, I thought that was your guys' job or whatever. And they're like, no. And then the next weekend, I think I got a call from a recruiter. So I'm pretty sure they were the ones who kind of nudged them in my direction. But it was one of the best decisions I ever made. I joined right out of high school, went to basic training. So I didn't start college until the next semester after. I was doing the reserves. So, the 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. But it allowed me to, get through college without any debt, taking any student loans or anything like that. So, it was honestly one of the better decisions I ever made. And then I was in for about, I think it was 6-7 years, and I hadn't been deployed at all through college, which was kind of crazy. And I graduated in 2008 when everything kind of, tanked the economy or whatever. Every job I looked for, I was either, I didn't have enough experience or I was overqualified or whatever, and it was just I was getting desperate and hungry. So I found a unit that was deployed to Afghanistan, and I was like, all right, well, haven't deployed yet, kind of, got to check that box on my list of things to do while in the military or whatever. And so kind of jumped at the opportunity, and, it was kind of exciting, and unfortunately the way it ended up, but, I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
So you talk about the way it ended up. Would you mind sharing with our listeners, the story of April 27th, 2011?
Yeah. So I was a combat engineer. My job in Afghanistan was basically doing route clearance. So we would go out every morning, drive all the routes in our area, looking for they would basically put bombs in the road, the IEDs. And we were really good. We found all the IEDs that were on the routes that we had cleared. Nobody behind us had ever gotten blown up. So we were awesome at our job until we weren't. And this one was just a new route. They had put it in right before the rainy season. And when they did, they just basically took this, we call them rat trails or whatever. They were just kind of footpaths that people could ride their motorbikes or just walk down or whatever, but they wanted to make it an actual route that we could drive our trucks down. So they just bulldozed it, flattened it out, and widened it. When they did that, there was a culvert running through it. We had no idea that it was even there. They had about 6 weeks during the rainy season to pack it full of explosives, which they had done. And we came up to it, and there was a ditch on either side of the road. None of us saw a culvert, we're like, all right, must not be one. All right, that's weird. Right as soon as we got over the top of that thing, it just went off, and it was just about 1,000 pounds of explosives. So, it rocked the truck. And luckily, though, I was the worst injured out of it. My driver, he had some minor spinal fractures or whatever, no nerve damage, anything like that. My gunner, he broke his ankle. We all had pretty bad concussions, but we all, survived it, and that's kind of crazy. But
so you mentioned your injury. You were paralyzed from the chest down.
Yeah. So it was T4, complete paralysis. What's kind of crazy though is I broke my back twice before that. I did it once playing hockey as a kid. Another time riding a four-wheeler when I was 19 years old. So I kind of been through it, I was this will be easy, go maybe get a surgery, whatever, I'll be back at it. It'll be fine. Just a couple weeks, whatever. But after my spinal surgery at Walter Reed, like the surgeon came in, I was like, hey, so like, like how long until I can get up and start getting out of here or whatever. And he was like, yeah, you're never going to walk again. He's like, your spinal cord is toast, and it was just like crushed, and it was the worst news I could possibly hear. But at the same time, it was kind of what allowed me to just sort of focus on what did I need to do to get out of the hospital, get rid of that kind of like false hope or the, sort of like the pipe dream of I'm going to walk again one day, where in my case, it was, that's never going to happen. The amount of willpower I have is not going to, make me stand up and walk on my own. So.
And, as those thoughts are becoming realities to you, you talked about the willpower you have. How did you transition, or where did you transition that willpower into other avenues or venues?
What became like my sort of like outlet or whatever was adaptive sports. When I did my rehab down in Tampa at the VA medical center down there, and we had an awesome like rec therapy department down there, and they got us out like, they would take us hand cycling. They would bring in, like the local like adaptive sports teams from like the Tampa area, have them come in and show us like what sports they did or whatever. And so it was just kind of like helped me realize, like, all right, it's not going to be as bad as I initially had thought. I thought it was going to be, like just sitting on the sidelines for the rest of my life, doing absolutely nothing. And, like they were showing me, like I could ski, I could play, like the rugby, basketball, or, hand cycling. I mean, like you name it, like it's out there or whatever. And so it kind of just let me know like, all right, there's still life to be lived.
Awesome. Great way to put it. And I've seen Dan in action. I think most recently your newest sport over the last couple of years has been lacrosse. And so he's been a big lax player there. So congrats to you for keep going with that.
Yeah.
Back over to you, Graham. Can you tell us a little bit about sort of a day in the life of an IndyCar driver? What it's like being part of Rahal Letterman Lanigan.
Well, it depends on the day. It's typically the off seasons are fairly quiet. A lot of what we do in the off season is physical training, mental training, getting ready, for what's ahead, studying years past film, races of the past to understand, the flow and the way that the races go. Each and every track's a little bit different. The challenge that it presents us is a little bit different. But in season it gets pretty busy with appearances, sponsor appearances, commitments all around the country. This year's been unique in that sense that we haven't done that nearly as much, but still nowadays it's pretty much filled lot of Zoom calls, a lot of interviews, a lot of things like that to get the sponsors what they need. And in fact, even I think later today we've got a Zoom call, like a virtual wine tasting with some of the sponsors to entertain some of their biggest guests or clients of the bank, Fifth Third Bank. And so, stuff like that, we're trying to think outside the box, different ways to, activate and get people excited about what we do. And then, as you guys know as well, on top of all of that, we have our foundation, which we're, continue to push forward and try to do as well as we can to help guys and gals just like Dan, and try to help improve the lives of those who have given so much to us.
Thank you for that. And Dan, I'm not sure about you, but I haven't seen that Zoom link come through yet for the wine tasting this afternoon. So maybe after this, you can forward that over.
Send that over.
Maybe
Appreciate
that. Some sommelier.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna have to pretend for a little bit.
And Graham, I don't think a lot of our listeners know that you and your dad aren't the only drivers in the family. Your wife Courtney, the daughter of funny car legend John Force, holds the NHRA record for most funny car wins at 12 by a woman. How did you two meet?
Oh, yeah, we met up in Chicago, actually, in Joliet at one of her races. Years ago now. It feels like it's gone by. It has gone by quick, but it was 8 years ago now, and that was forever changed after that that meeting. And we've been married this is year number 5. So things have gone by in quite a hurry, but it's been great too, to get her, involved in the charity and the foundation and everything that we do. And it's been fun to have her. And like I said, see her passion for it grow too. The last couple of years, she's changed the name of the foundation, I think 3 years ago. And, you know, the passion, the fire has really grown within her, which has been great to see.
Awesome. Awesome. And what was it like just being two professional athletes, you know, passing ships in the night with race schedules? Was it difficult for the first couple of years?
Oh yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult. There's a lot of movement in that regard. I mean, it was hard to see. You know, we didn't see her much. I mean, it's just the way it was. We tried to make time, you know, that I'd go to her races or she'd come to mine, but it was always tough. A lot of times, one of us would be racing on the East Coast, one on the West. You know, even just the time change and everything else, you know, was very difficult to cope with from time to time. But you know, she retired 2 years ago now. We have a baby on the way. November 1st will be our first.
Congratulations.
So we're excited about that. And, you know, for her, it's been great too. I think it's given her something to really look forward to and live for. You know, when you lose that competitive drive and the fire that racing or any sport or any competition or, you know, going to battle. I mean, let's be honest, it's that fire within you is what drives you through life and stuff. When you lose that and you step away from the seat, it becomes pretty hard, I think, mentally to adjust to that. But she's done a great job, and obviously the baby's going to be able to help and change that quite a bit too.
And actually, that was the next question, or congratulations first on that. And the next question for you is, how do you see that, if any way, you know, sort of changing or affecting your life? Obviously, it's a big change for anybody who become a parent for the first time. You
Yeah.
talk about her fire, her passion. I certainly see that transferring over to being the mom. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think I do think, you know, the mom stage is going to be an interesting thing for her. The competitiveness that watching your kids play sports and everything else. We all know what the good old soccer mom's like, you know, for sure. And I think that can easily, I see that out of my sister-in-law who was in the same pattern as Courtney and stepped out of the car and, you know, and had kids and thought someday she might go back to racing. And now if you ask her, you know, for her, it's all about watching her kids excel in sports and have fun and everything else. So, you know, I anticipate a great change. But you know, we talked about the foundation before. I mean, I have seen a quick change in her, you know, when we talk about how much money we're raising and what we can do and where it can go in the future. You know, initially her involvement was pretty light. Her interest in it too, I think she was kind of kept at arm's length by choice. You know, I think she just decided, oh, I don't know about this. I don't really know how to do it and whatever else. And while it's still a challenge from afar, she definitely is you know, pushing on and been doing a lot more to help us and to help the foundation raise more money and everything else. So I think even the competitive drive, you know, year in, year out to raise more and to do more, you know, you can see it, you know, kind of in a business sense like that as well.
No, thank you. Well, actually, we'll talk about the foundation in the second half of the show. But that's great to hear that, you know, she's really picking up the reins on that and really driving that forward. Dan, back over to you. You know, we talked briefly about your injury, being paralyzed from chest down. How do you become mobile again now? What are you doing to be able to get up and to move around?
Well, I mean, I've got my chair, whatever that I'll use to, you know, push around, go wherever, drive a regular everyday car. I've also got the exoskeleton, which is great. It's more of like a piece of like exercise equipment, but I'm able to, you know, get in that, stand up, walk around, which is great for like my range of motion, bone density, flexibility, and just, you know, like my emotional well-being. You know, it's great. My wife, they actually trained her how to be the one to walk with me or whatever for it. So, you know, I get to stand up and be eye level with her, you know, a few times a week, which is kind of fun. So it's,
Can you tell us a little bit about how the exoskeleton works?
Yeah. So basically, it's just like has electric motors on it. It goes, you know, it has like foot pads that my feet will strap onto. There's you know, like straps and pads around like the shins, the thighs, and it comes all the way up to my back or whatever. It has like backpack straps where that's where like the computer and like the batteries are like on the back piece of it. The device itself like works basically by foot pads and the sensors in the foot pads, that can tell where my center of gravity is. So for me to take like a step with my right foot, I have to lean over my left foot and then slightly forward, and it'll automatically take that step with the right. And I use like the cuff crutches or whatever to like balance myself and get myself to where I need to be in space. And that's like one of the things like why you can't really take it out in public yet or whatever, or just like walk down the sidewalk, because that device is programmed to take like an 11-inch step, pick it up like 9/10 of an inch. Swing time is like 9/10 of a second. You know, it's all like pre-programmed. So like I could be standing on the edge of a cliff and it's going to take that step forward, you know, like no, regardless of what's there. So it's like, until that device, it can figure out a way to like make it, I mean, aware of its surroundings or whatever. That's like the big limitation. But, you know, like technology advances rapidly. So one day it'll be there, you know, and I'm just excited to be like on like taking some of the first steps towards that progression, you know, and so it's kind of exciting.
And you mentioned you have your exoskeleton suit. How did you come about receiving that?
All right. So, well, I mean, you know the story. I'll tell you again though. The organization Soldier Strong, which you started, they were donating one, and I was living in Wisconsin at the time, and the chief of the spinal cord center at the Milwaukee VA actually called me up and was like, "Hey Dan, this organization is actually donating like one of these exoskeleton devices. I want to put you in for it." You know, and I was like, "Oh, that's awesome! Like that's amazing!" You know, and I kind of like thought of it like buying a Powerball ticket, you know, like where it's like, "Oh man, that'd be so cool to win," you know, like already planning out like my next steps with it or whatever, but like kind of like in that like fantasy realm or whatever, where it's like it's never actually going to happen, but it would be so cool if it did. Luckily, like 2 months later, Dr. Lee called me back and he was like, "Dan, they picked you." And he's like, "But you got to go out to like New York City to get it or whatever." And I was like, "Shit, Doc, like I'll go to Mars if that's where I got to go. Like just, it's worth it." And so it was just like kind of a crazy series of events, I guess, that kind of like collided our worlds together. And yeah, ever since it's been just amazing, you know, to have that device, to be able to use it. Like, I'm very fortunate. So thank you.
No, my pleasure, my honor. And seeing your smile, I should put on my desk here in my office upstairs here at home. I've got a picture of you from that event receiving exoskeleton. You're looking over at your now wife, Lisa, and family.
Yeah.
And that picture is worth everything. So thank you for your sacrifice and your service, sir.
No, of course. Thank you.
And then I guess maybe one other question for you along the lines of the exoskeleton is, what was it like the first time you were walking in that?
Right. It was just crazy. I guess I never realized like how used to like my perspective being from a seated position and like just standing up again or whatever, and being, you know, I'm 5'7", so I'm not a giant by any means, but I mean, I still just felt like, you know, I felt like I was on top of a mountain, you know. I was like, oh my God, like this is crazy. And it was just like, you know, like a rush of emotions. And, you know, it's something that I guess, you know, luckily not many people will get to experience that. Because I mean, you got to go through a terrible ordeal of events to get there, but then to like all of a sudden have that ability to walk again, like return, it's just like, holy crap, like it's just big, like a huge rush of emotion, and it's amazing.
And how many times a week are you walking now?
Well, now that Lisa's teaching school again, so it's
Right.
sort of taking a little backseat or whatever, but we're trying to do it at least 3 times a week.
Great. You mentioned before
They're all virtual teaching, so it's crazy.
I forgot about that. Yeah, that's strange times, right? 2020, the year we all want to forget.
Right. It never ends.
It doesn't. You're talking about the fires you have there. We've got the fires in California. So 2021 has to be the perfect year for everybody, right?
Oh, can't get any worse.
Fingers crossed. We're going to take a short break here. You're listening to Next Steps Forward. I'm Chris Meek with IndyCar driver Graham Rahal and Sergeant Dan Rose. We'll be right back. All right. Welcome back, Voice America listeners. This is Next Step Forward. I'm your host, Chris Meek. Thanks for joining us today. For those of you just joining us, again, we have 2 very special guests, 2 good friends of mine. IndyCar driver Graham Rahal, just coming off a 3rd place podium finish at the Indy 500, and Army Sergeant Dan Rose. So gentlemen, thanks again for being here and welcome back.
Thank you.
Good to be back.
Graham, let's talk a little bit about all the work you do off the track. You know, you talked earlier about the foundation the work that you and Courtney have been doing. I know it started out as the Graham Rahal Foundation. Now it's both of yours, which is fantastic. Love the new logo and representing on your hat. So thanks for wearing that today. Before we get to that, can you talk about a little bit about your sponsor, United Rentals, and the Turns for Troops program?
Yeah, so United Rentals has been a tremendous, partner of our team. Obviously, racing is very unique compared to many other sports in the sense that we rely solely on sponsors to go racing. Without sponsorship, we don't do what we do. But the great thing about United Rentals is when they came on board, the first objective for them was, okay, let's take this great platform. Let's find a way to give back. And so Turns for Troops was born, the initiative, the concept. And the idea is every lap that we complete throughout the year, $50 is donated. At the Indianapolis 500, it goes up to $100 per lap. So that's clearly an important one, dollar-wise for us. This year, because of the funkiness of COVID and everything else, through quarantine, we did iRacing, online racing, which was televised, and United Rentals even did the $50 per lap during that period of time. But not only, it doesn't just stop there. We do go on to, United Rentals is our presenting sponsor of our charity golf event, which is perhaps our biggest, it is from our foundation standpoint, it's the biggest fundraiser each and every year. But it's always it's always a little bit larger than the amount that we'll raise on track. But combined, it's definitely a hefty donation that we make to Soldier Strong every year. And as I said before, the goal is always to try to help people like Dan, who we've become very, very close with. And Dan's, become one of our favorite faces and guys to have at the track with us. And, there's nothing more powerful than, when United Rentals had Dan come out to the 500 and we stood together on the front straight for the national anthem was a special moment in my life, and hopefully it was for him too.
I'll never forget it.
Yeah, thank you. Dan, it's a great point there, Graham. With all the things going on now in the world, and certainly in the U.S., from kneeling for the flag, Black Lives Matter, all this stuff, what was it like for you personally, knowing that you couldn't stand and walk again, to actually be able to stand up right there, as Graham mentioned earlier in the show, the largest single-day sporting event in the galaxy? What did that feel like?
It was insane. It was like one of those things, like when I was in the hospital, like when I went to like sporting events or whatever after getting out of the hospital, it was like one of the, reminders, where it's just like, all right, now everyone take off your hats and please, like stand for the anthem. And it's just like, all right, well, I guess I can take my hat off, but I'm going to keep sitting here or whatever. So, but to do it like there on the track at the 500 with, it seems like millions of people on either side of the track in both grandstands. It's just nuts, like pandemonium. And I just wonder, what was it like this year, where it was just, they got, just hearing the audio, like from the TV, it was just echoey, like there was nobody there, and like, I remember one year there was a guy, he was like, Graham, and it was like during the anthem, so everyone else was like quiet, I was like, and he kind of like turned around, he's like, yeah, like,
yeah, it's different, man. It's a different feel, without everybody. To have the Thunderbirds do their flyover was amazing, to see that, and always a great show of America's power and everything else. But
were they as good as last year?
As the years that we did it together, that's for sure.
Was it as good as the last year's flyover, where it was like the A-10 and the F-16, like the two like World War II warbirds going over, and then all of a sudden the F-16 came back and put on like a one-man air show?
So the F-16 guy was nuts last year. So,
yeah, we just got to the center of the track. I was like, I'm gonna go up.
Yeah, the Thunderbirds were great, definitely. I mean, the 500 always has a really cool flyover, stealth bombers or whatever it may be. There's always, I think the stealth bomber always gets everybody, the most excited just to see, because it's so kind of iconic. But no, it was great, and I've flown with the Thunderbirds, so to get that opportunity and to see them again at the track and talk and stuff, it was awesome. But as we said, it was definitely a different vibe than, than what it normally or traditionally is at the 500.
Mm.
But it's still a cool event. It still is fun to be a part of. And, we finished all the laps. So we got to raise good money. I guess that, if nothing else,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. It's probably easier to get from the garage out to the track or whatever.
It was a lot easier this time. It was
Yeah.
definitely a lot easier.
Well, and to that point, Graham, about the laps, I need to check the total, but since United Rentals and Rahal Letterman Lanigan started the Turns for Troops program, I believe it was back in 2016 was the first year, you're approaching, I think, over $900,000 raised.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to say that we're, with the foundation golf outing and everything else this year, I'm sure we'll far exceed $1 million in donations, which is tremendous. How many suits does that get us at 150 a pop?
150 clip.
Right?
Yep. Exactly.
It's pretty good. Our goal is to continue to help, try to do everything we can for Soldier Strong. You guys have been phenomenal partners to be able to work with. We love what Soldier Strong does. And as we look forward, we're excited that next year we're going to have a new event in Napa Valley called Vino for Vets, which again will be a kind of a fun wine tasting experience weekend and everything else. But we'll all the 100% of the proceeds will also go to Turns for Troops and therefore Soldier Strong. So, we anticipate really, exciting future, and hopefully we can continue to raise money. And I will say we haven't told too many people, but our team did a great job this year at the golf outing. In a year where we thought at one point that maybe the golf outing wasn't, may not continue on, at least for this year. And we might just focus on 2021. We did set an all-time record for dollars raised this year, which was tremendous. So
no, it's fantastic.
We're excited by that.
No, congratulations to everybody. And thank you to everybody for participating in that. I know it's difficult. It's challenging. Everything's a little strange and odd, and golfing 6 feet apart. And so thanks all for being a part of that.
For sure.
And Graham, back to the foundation, you've mentioned Soldier Strong as one of the charities you support, but what's the other supporting the recipients for the foundation for you and Courtney?
Yeah, so our foundation, the other side of it is actually not too far from Diana, up in Fort Collins, which is Colorado State University. It's the branch that we work with is Colorado State's One Cure, and as we look around and we think about, or we talk about how cancer has affected people, every single person's going to raise their hand, right? It's whether that's a fellow human, a family member, a friend, and in this case, dogs, pets. But Colorado State at the Flint Animal Cancer Center, they've recognized and realized that the cancer cells in dogs, which are 85% genetically identical to a human. So anybody ever wonders why we love dogs so much, that it makes a lot of sense. But the cancer cells that are found in dogs are the same as humans. The way that the cancers react to treatments, same as humans. Where the treatment used to be, there really is no treatment. If a dog got cancer, well, it's, we're going to have to put it down, or let it live out its life if it's painless and pass away. Now there's a great opportunity for us to cure that cancer as well. And so what do we do directly? To date, what our foundation has funded is called the Losartan study. Losartan study basically is using the drug Losartan. They found that given in extreme doses, it is able to vastly reduce and sometimes completely eliminate cells of bone cancer in pets and dogs. And so we are funding the first ever clinical trial that is found with comparative oncology, now being used in children. So Children's Hospital in Denver is our first trial. Now these are children who've been told there is no option for their bone cancer. Bone cancer in human beings is pretty rare, but in dogs, it is very common. In fact, in golden retrievers, about 90% of golden retrievers will have this form of cancer at some point, which is a crazy statistic to think about. Our next hospital that is coming on board for our next clinical trial is in Atlanta. And so, as a foundation, we're focused heavily on military, as you guys know, but also how can you not like to support dogs, kids, cancer research and everything else. So I feel that the One Cure side of our program is equally as exciting.
Yeah, no question. I've had the privilege of meeting some of those folks. And so hats off to you and Courtney and everybody in the foundation for the work you do. I mean, it's just spectacular and such a wide spectrum of causes that you're supporting. So as one of those beneficiaries, recipients, truly appreciate that, but also for others out there as well.
No, for sure. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been, I mean, you know how it is when it comes to foundation work like this, and when it comes to giving back, and it's a powerful thing. It just is. I think we're honored to be able to do it, to be in a position to be able to do it. And as you both know, I mean, obviously Dan and I become good friends, and it's, to talk to Dan and see Lisa and catch up often and everything else. I mean, it's a powerful thing too. And that drives you forward, in a big, big way that, we always, we want to see lives like his be improved. We want Dan to be able to stand up and look us eye to eye and have a great conversation, and it's tremendously powerful when you see it in person, when you see it live. I know when Dan was at our sponsor summit the night before, or sponsor dinner the night before the Indy 500, and got up and walked, there weren't many dry eyes in the place. And it is extremely, extremely powerful, for us to witness. And so, then it drives us all further to, want to help and give back and support as much as we humanly can. And the golf tournament's a huge thing. It's Thursday before the Indy 500. It's something that everybody wants to do, and everybody wants to be a part of. But it also raises a huge amount of money, for us to support these things. So it's been an honor for us.
And, you talked about why philanthropy is important to you, given how busy and hectic, professional athlete's schedule is, and certainly for both you and Courtney when she was racing as well. What got you into philanthropy to begin with?
Well, my start was, my first boss in racing was Paul Newman. I remember vividly 2006, end of 2006, beginning of 2007. I was a kid. I was 17 years old at the time. But I was with Paul in Sebring, Florida, and Paul went into the story about how he started Newman's Own, and how not only Newman's Own started, but the hole in the wall camps for kids, and why he did what he did. And, at that time, it was, like I said, this might've been September of 2007. So after my first, my rookie year, at that time he had raised $180 million to give back to kids and to help support. I don't know if curing is the right word, but to help support positive progress for all types of illnesses for children, to give them a camp and a place to go to where illnesses don't become the focus and purely having fun was. As Paul used to always say, that laughter was the greatest cure in his mind. And so, that's where it all began. When I was a kid, my mom and dad were heavily involved, had a big golf tournament in Columbus, Ohio, where I was from, raised millions of dollars, and helped fund the first bone marrow transplant facility in Columbus at Nationwide Children's Hospital. Donated, I think at the end it was $2.7 million to help fund the floor. And this is in the mid '90s. So that was a lot of money back in that period of time. And so it kind of ran in my blood. I think my parents kind of initiated the concept of giving back and helping improve the lives of others. And then when Paul passed away in 2008, it was, I think, also September of 2008. It was clear to me, it was evident that, this guy that was so powerful and so influential in my life all of a sudden his presence was kind of gone. Not just his life, but I didn't see the name of the charity on the car anymore. I didn't see, and it kind of drove me nuts. So in May of 2009, I started my foundation. Now, again, at this point, I'm 19, just turned 20 years old. So this was all kind of on a whim. I'm going to do this and we're going to go. And from there, we began the golf tournament. And so we were very fortunate over the years that the golf tournament has been able to sustain the ups and downs. But again, we talked about United Rentals earlier. The golf tournament had been shelved for quite a while. The foundation hadn't been doing a ton for about 2 or 3 years. I kind of locked in on racing, and then, Chris Hummel, who's no longer with United Rentals, but a great friend of ours. Chris and I sat down out in, where were we? Maybe Phoenix? I don't think maybe Phoenix or something. And we sat down and discussed. This was in like January. And Chris goes, well, you think we can make it happen for this year? I'm like, man, that's like 3 months away, May.
That sounds like Chris. And
we did it, we did it. And, we put it together and, raised over $200,000. And, from there, it just kept building and building and building to where we are, now. And so it's been a huge, huge, huge fundraiser for us over the last few years. And so thanks again, to United Rentals for helping kind of inspire us. My wife, myself, Brittany, Brooke. Brooke's been, doing our tournament for the last few years. Brittany's come on board this year and done an amazing job. So everybody, it inspires us, I think, to push forward and to keep, trying to raise more and do more and make the tournament better every year. And obviously Vino for Vets, which I mentioned. Dan, we'll definitely have to get you out there to share some stories. That's a powerful part of what we want to do. But it's we're excited about, what we can do and the lives that we can change in the future.
Great. Thank you. And I actually just got the book about Newman's Own. I live just down the road from where it was started in Connecticut. So very familiar with Mr. Newman and Newman's Own. So looking forward to reading that.
It's a fascinating thing. And I wish more, I personally, I'm not taking a shot at him, but I wish more celebrities in this world would do what Paul Newman did. Used his star to help brighten everybody else's lives, not themselves. And, he was the king of that. I mean, I don't even know, if you looked at what Newman's Own in the family, I see Clea Newman all the time. But Nell, the whole family, like, I don't even know, what the dollar number would be today of what they've raised, but it's massive. Yeah. I mean, massive.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I didn't know any of those details. So that's fascinating from my perspective. So thank you. Dan, over to you for a moment. We talked about Turns for Troops here briefly. Can you tell us, what Turns for Troops has meant to you, your involvement, what Graham can do better for you?
I think it's just been amazing, just putting, I guess, the word out there or whatever, and like there are these, organizations to help veterans, not to like disparage any other, like so-called organizations that help veterans, but like Soldier Strong, like all their money that they bring in goes towards veterans, like nobody's taking huge paychecks out of it or anything like that, and you can see the positive impact that it has on people's lives, like any of the pictures of any other veteran, like myself included, like when we stand up for the first time or whatever, and like you can just see that flood of emotions going through that person's face. And that's like, you can't put a dollar amount on that. That is just something to like return that to them is amazing. And I think it's great, and like Graham has just gone out of his way to like kind of pick it up. And I think you just slapped, whenever United Rentals told you about Soldier Strong, I think you just slapped a sticker on the car. You're like, whatever, I don't know what the dollar amount of ad space this is, but these guys are doing some great stuff, and just like, boom, like put it right on the car, and it was just like, holy crap, that's crazy.
Selfishly, that's still my favorite car, Graham.
Yeah, I think that goes back, again, to United Rentals. It's, they were footing the bill, but what did they decide to do was, promote Soldier Strong, Turns for Troops. In fact, the creepy mannequin that you see behind me here, this was actually when I won the doubleheader in Detroit. Swept the weekend. That was the suit, the helmet, gloves, everything else from that weekend. And that weekend was, the red, white, and blue Soldier Strong, Turns for Troops car. So again, here we are on a weekend where we crushed it. We got every bit of media exposure we possibly could. United Rentals is paying the bill, but who got the exposure, was Soldier Strong and Turns for Troops. So, I'll whether they decide to stop sponsoring me tomorrow or not, it doesn't matter. I would always say, they're a tremendous group of people who do great things. And, certainly have always been proud to be associated with them.
Yeah, like you and the foundation, they are very proud of their philanthropic work. And so again, hats off to United Rentals and Turns for Troops program, as well as for the Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing team for being such a great part of that.
They also employ a lot of veterans as well. Like at United Rentals, like they have a ton of veterans that they bring in just to hire on.
Great time. Yep, I believe it's about 15%. So that's a great point. Dan, we talked a little bit before about your injury and, your first, I guess, initial phase of acclimating to that. You've overcome some of the most daunting obstacles that people like Graham or I could never imagine. What motivates you? What keeps you going day in, day out?
Well, I mean, I think it's just you giving up isn't an option. You've got to keep driving forward. I mean, like if you want a better life, you got to work to make it that way. It's not just going to land on your doorstep. But the other thing for me too is also like remembering just perspective. Whenever anyone has a problem, it seems like it's the biggest thing in the world, and you kind of like lose focus on like, there's people out there who have like things that are way worse right now or whatever. And so just like, I always try to keep things like in perspective like that, where it's like, yeah, like I'm going through a tough time, but there's people who are going through worse. If they can get through what they're doing, I can get through what I'm doing. Like, I just got to keep my head down, keep working hard, and things will get better, and like just having that optimistic outlook, like you can't give up. Because like, I mean, I've had people told me like, oh, I never would have made it if I would have, like been paralyzed or whatever. And it's like, well, the alternative is just nothing. Like you don't really, that's not really a choice, like you have to do something. So it's like, you got to keep working.
No. That being said, what advice do you have for some of our listeners who might not have the same optimism you've had and continue to have in terms of, I'm going to figure out what the new life looks like, what the new norm looks like? Any, sort of tricks of the trade, for lack of a better phrase, that you could share?
I guess just, like you just got to stay positive. I know it's hard, especially, where times right now or whatever are crazy, and it's hard to see that kind of like silver lining or whatever, but it's, you got to motivate yourself in one way or the other. And I just having that, like sort of like optimism or like faith that things will get better will definitely give you results a lot faster than just piling on the negative or whatever.
Thank you for that. And one other question for you in regards to the exoskeleton that you use. You talked about technology constantly evolving and changing. We had a new IndyCar this year. What do you see technology like in 5 or 10 years?
I hope it's beyond like whatever I could imagine. But I mean, it definitely would be, the device being more intuitive, where it's not so much like I have to tell it where to go, what to do or whatever, like kind of like, I don't know, like an integration or whatever, like a, if I look at a place or whatever, I can start heading that way or whatever. But I don't know, like it's going to be crazy just to see like what, like what I'm taking now and to actually see that product will be, two different things. And I hope it's exciting.
What about rocket thrusters?
Yeah, I've been asking them every time I talk to like their engineers or whatever. And like, they're saying that's like 50 years down the road. So
sure, I'm sure it'll get lighter too, I mean, you look at it right now, it's pretty heavy piece and stuff, but as it advances,
the batteries are going to get smaller.
Yeah.
The motors will get smaller. Everything will get more powerful. It's like you look at the progression of the cars from the runnings of the Indy 500, and like the first year it was like 10, 15 hours or whatever it took them to get done.
Yeah.
Like
sure. It's pretty cool to see technology evolve, and it does happen pretty quickly. It's pretty crazy.
Faster and faster.
The best example I always have is like the cell phone. Like we had like the Zach Morris bricks. Like, and then now we all have like a supercomputer in our pocket.
The last question I have is for you, Graham. Might be a little more of a personal one. Who's got a better beard, Dan Rose or Dave Letterman?
I gotta say, I think Dan's got this competition covered. I mean, Dave's is pretty big too. It's not the most attractive thing I've ever seen, but I told Dan there's got to be something living in there. That thing is thick. It is strong. But He's filling his role as a mountain man in Colorado. So
I love it.
Grizzly Adams did have a beard.
it's good work.
Well, gentlemen, thank you both for being here. This is Next Steps Forward. I'm your host, Chris Meek. We're with IndyCar driver Graham Rahal and Army Sergeant Dan Rose. Again, gentlemen, thanks again for your time. Graham, congratulations again, a great third place finish in the 500, and looking forward to seeing you both soon. Take care and God bless.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.